We had a bit of a pullback in silver's price, and be prepared for more of those. But I believe that we should look beyond that into what's going on in the fundamentals of the silver market right now. And it's looking good. It's looking long. Let's talk about it as we explore. Silver's prices will frustrate us from time to time. Make no mistake, we are going to see more disappointments in the silver market. It's inevitable. There are corrections that happen, and it occurs a lot. This last one, though, kind of caught us off guard, and there are some that got really upset over this drop in silver's price to the point of blaming others. But nonetheless, when we look beyond that and see that the fundamentals of silver are still really good and have not changed in terms of the supply-demand dynamics, and that's what we're going to talk about in this, essentially a part one of two videos that I'm going to be talking about as to why I think silver's prices are going higher. And before I get into this, I want to remind you of channel sponsor Summit Metals. Elevate your wealth with silver from summitmetals.com. A great company that's got excellent customer service and increased shipping times. Silver, indeed, is ranking among one of the top performing commodities on the market in spite of the pullbacks we've been seeing here, according to mining.com, with renewed investor interest and strong fundamentals that are driving prices to their highest in 14 years. Now, despite having recorded impressive gains earlier this year, above 28%, even higher, and 21% the year before, some analysts predict that the rally is only getting started and the precious metal remains an attractive investment opportunity. The key word there being investment, because if you bought silver at the beginning of the year compared to now, it's performed better than many investments. That's actually really good. However, there's some people that have taken that to such an extreme that when they see a couple of dollars pullback, they absolutely panic. And it's like, I'm getting out. Wasn't expecting this. Well, these are the things you should expect. Investments are risky. And yes, silver has been risky if you bought at the beginning of this year and your risk paid off. You're a little bit of a high risk, had a high reward to it. But if you bought silver right before the dip, well, you got a little bit of a risk to a little bit of a plunge in price there, and you took some losses. Now, losses and gains are really accounted for by investments. But I have been telling my viewers consistently throughout the life of this channel that you should not view silver as an investment at all. No, you should view it as a hedge against economic uncertainty, as a savings vehicle outside of the system from which we currently find ourselves apart. That's invaluable. To think of it as an insurance policy and as wealth outside of the system really means that silver, there's more to silver than just its price, that's for sure. Now, there's a whole lot of different kinds of silver that you can buy, including some of what you see on your display, on the display before you here. This is all mostly stacker type silver, but there's collector type coins too. In fact, I did a video just recently, I'm going to link to it at the end screen, you should check out, about one of the coolest coins that I've ever reviewed on this channel, so I hope you will check it out. By Spectre's Mint, it is impressive. But nonetheless, as far as the metal itself, well, it has value that it is in and of itself. That's intrinsic. And when you look at that historic value of the metal, that is really what shines, even though most of the silver you see here is tarnished. So I'll get into what's going on here. Now, you may remember that I have reported that Citigroup has recently upgraded its near-term silver price forecast to beyond $40 an ounce, citing a tightening supply and strengthening demand. That's the key fundamentals here. And those are fundamentals that are outside of the current news events with regards to tariffs. Tariffs definitely do weigh in on silver's price movement from day to day, maybe even week to week, and the sentiment alongside of those tariffs. And it's going to continue to weigh in as the now August 1st deadline has been passed, and these tariffs are being implemented, and some of that is going to start taking effect on the 7th of August. through the beginning of October. So we have a lot to digest in order to see what kind of repercussions are going to take as this shift in trade and economic activity is moving. Sprott, in its mid-year outlook for silver, highlighted the years-long structural deficit and intensifying industrial demand as major factors to propel prices even higher. That's right. And there is a continued deficit. And if there's not a deficit, it's very close to it. The firm, citing data from the Silver Institute and Metals Focus, says that 2025 will likely be the 7th consecutive year of global silver mining market deficit, which would maintain an upward pressure on prices. Now, I've heard that number being floated around lately, but all the other data seems to think that there's 5 years of deficit. Now, keep in mind, that is only from one institution, one group that has done that research. And there's another large group, CPM, which says that we're not necessarily in deficit, last I heard anyway, from what they've been saying, but we're closest to ever before to having a deficit, which means that there is stress and pressure in the silver market supply chains than ever before. Everybody agrees on that at the very least. Meanwhile, demand, especially from the energy sector, is not slowing down. The metal is crucial to the technology needed to meet rising global electrical demand. Yes, indeed, that's right. It is needed more now than ever before, and much of that is going to be recession resistant or maybe even recession proof in some cases. And so that includes solar power, electric vehicles, and electronics. Solar demand alone accounted for 17% of last year's total, a threefold increase over the 5.6% from a decade ago. Wow, that's pretty amazing. And it's just growing from that point on out. Exacerbating the problem is a shrinking mining supply. Industry data shows that global mine supply has declined by 7% since 2016, contributing to the prolonged structural deficit. In other words, we have passed peak silver in about 2016, according to these data. It is estimated that the cumulative shortfall during 2021 to 2025 is almost 800 million ounces, according to Sprott. A wild card for the silver market balance, according to Sprott, is a robust investment demand. And this rise in silver exchange-traded products continues to impact silver demand significantly, as many silver ETPs are backed by actual silver stored in vaults, rendering it unavailable for industrial users. It noted, if the first half of 2025 global silver-backed ETPs experienced significant net inflows reaching 95 million ounces, according to the Silver Institute, since 2019. More than 1.1 billion ounces have been drawn from available mobile inventory. So yes, so that is something else to consider too if you buy that data and that source. Of course, you got to look at other sources too. Of course, I don't know really how many other sources are studying this. Hopefully some of the other big bullion banks are doing their own studies on this as well. But Sprott is certainly one that has skin in the game, considering they have the physical, they have their own exchange-traded fund, which is backed 1-to-1 with silver. The Sprott report also emphasized silver's rising prominence as a safe haven like gold during periods of high geopolitical tensions. We know that's going on right now. However, in comparison to gold, silver presents a much more affordable and potential higher growth option to investors, it says. According to Maria Smirnova, silver remains undervalued relative to gold. On average, gold has historically been priced at 67 times the price of silver. With the current ratio at 91, silver is selling at a strong discount to gold, she said, adding that silver is mined at only 7-to-1 compared to gold. Of course, that's a completely independent statistic and has no bearing on the actual price ratio. The mining ratio should never be used to compare what the price ratio should be. And by the way, even at the average before, and that data goes all the way back to 1980, up until 1985, 1986, it was far below that average. And so we've seen long periods of time where it was far above that average, like in 1991 when it got up to 100-to-1. and in 2020 when it got to 126 to 1. But there's been other times where it's peaked and ebbed and flowed. And if you look at the graph of that, it's very difficult to look at that mean average and make much of it. And through the last 10 years, by the way, that average has been higher, like close to 80 to 1. So given the strong and shifting dynamics of the silver market, I think we've entered into new territory, because the lowest it has been, that is dipped below that 67 average in the past 10 years, has really been in about 2021, when it got to $32 an ounce, where it dipped right below 67. The last time before that was about 10 years ago. So right about 2016, actually, the very beginning of 2016. Smirnova also points out that silver is primarily influenced by retail investment demand, while gold is controlled by central banks and sovereign entities. The available inventory of freely traded silver has been heavily diminished, making the metal more sensitive to incremental buying. Small increases in demand could now lead to disproportionately large increases in price, she wrote. And so we're looking at essentially here not a short squeeze, folks. We're looking at a long silver squeeze. And this is something. And so this is something that I think is going to be really play a role here in a continued slow movement up of silver's price, which is going to be good for in the long run. The long squeeze is better than a short silver squeeze, that's for sure. And we've seen several different areas of short squeezes occur in the market on the retail side back in 2021 and 22 for parts of it, and now on the industrial side here recently with trade imbalances and tariff fears. That is largely what has driven the short squeezes that have occurred in the markets, which cause high lease rates, etc. So with less silver available for open market trading, investor positioning has become a more decisive force in price movements. The current situation, she says, may be setting the stage for a possible silver squeeze, she says, but I think it's a long silver squeeze in concert with some of the shorter ones that are coming along the way. In past precious metal bull markets, silver's rally has been about 2 times as large as gold on average, according to the report. This is something, and it tells us, folks, that silver is indeed here for the long haul, and it is witnessing some of this movement in price, as it is a much smaller market than the gold market. So it's more susceptible to these price movements, including some of the downturns that we have seen. And by the way, we'll continue to see. We're going to see them, but we must remain steadfast and strong. And more importantly, realistic about silver and where its price is going to go, which is why my predictions have been relatively modest, yea, though, bullish. But even though I make some calls on where silver is going to go, I do it just for fun. You should never make any purchases or decisions on silver based off of what I say here. Fact check everything, including me. Sometimes I get some things wrong. There's other times where I miss certain metrics and things. You know, I do a lot of work on this channel, but I can't get everything right. I can't cover every single thing that you so desire me to wish to. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out the videos I just posted today, too. They're right here at the end screen of this video. And I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch. Stay tuned for part 2 coming very soon on this video, on this little series about why silver's going higher, as I encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.